또 시작?
아니 방법까지 진짜 지금 그만하는 게 개소리냐. 근데 한국사가 원래 한국사
TST 올 것 같은데? 또 온다.
내가 여기 가야 돼.
아니 너가 같이자마자 말하는 거. 강남대성 강남이잖아 그거. 그냥 강남에 있어서가 아니라 그냥 강남대성이 원래 그런 이게 아니고 스터디 카페 따로 안 다녔어? 학원에 그냥 사물함도 있고 다 있으니까. 야식을 왜 먹어? 그냥 참으면 돼. 그게 너무 상관없어. 나도 이랬어. 어디가? 시작점에 있는 거지. 학교 차들. 아니 학교. 이다가 아니 나 불면서.
저는 버스 타고 다녔습니다.
감사합니다.
저는 도보로 다녔습니다.
저는 부모님 차로 다녔습니다.
시속 50km 신호 과속 단속 구간입니다.
I think he did a good job in a sense of being able to help us balance between designing like concept and facades. So I feel like there was a good balance in that aspect.
Especially having a lot of like precedents and a lot of help with sort of previous real life examples, I think it was really, really helpful in developing our project the entire time.
Jin Young was good. You could tell he was very passionate about the project and having first-hand experience, so he was able to really contribute. Definitely harsh at the times that you needed him to be harsh, but he cared about all the projects and was a great professor for us.
I think it was definitely the most work I've ever done during a semester, but in the same sense, it was also very rewarding.
Greg was very, I think his emphasis on certain details and making sure that we were still like focusing on the right things, especially a group project where everybody kind of has to think the same way.
Actually, really bad. No, I'm joking. I really liked him. I think he was definitely a good professor to kind of push his students. The only critique I'd say that I have is I wish he gave us more time for the final model, just because like at the end there was just a lot of like stuff he was still catching up on. But overall, like I felt like every part of our building was actually very well thought out, which was helpful, like especially in reviews. I thought it was pretty developed as a project. I mean, I think that was like a lot more work than I typically do. In the end, like it was rewarding and I feel like the product was worth it.
Like I mentioned earlier, he expected a lot, and this is like the one semester that I feel like I pushed myself the most, but I think because of the results of like the drawings, I in a sense like appreciated it.
I give him props because he's able to push us and then got us to the point where we developed our project to the point where it is. I think our whole team is very satisfied.
He was good, yeah, and he pushed us to do a lot of different stuff that made sense in the end, right? Like doing those like crazy models and stuff is like definitely like a good experience. I wouldn't think of doing that in any other way.
The structure of a Hagwon is very rigorous, so kind of like trying to decompose and like deconstruct that idea and then put it back together so it's like you're still getting the same learning outcomes. You're redesigning it so it's better for the students. I think was like a very like unique aspect of it.
This particular studio was a real challenge to think about the way people interact in spaces, what should education be, what pedagogy should be, what are the different types of pedagogy. I think those are all different philosophical arguments that this Hagwon project really allowed us to explore.
It was important to create a building that was architecturally like significant but also still, like, with the improvements and changes that we thought we could implement, was a successful Hagwon. Just because the building is beautiful, it does all these things that architects are interested in. If there's no user for it, or if it doesn't still work, then it's kind of no point. So I think figuring out that balance and really understanding the culture and what we could do to help out was important.
It was just like a super purpose-driven, like just tiny little hallways, just get to your straight destination, and then just do your thing, and then just leave. Thinking of a building in terms of like how we think of a Hagwon, like you can play with scale and define spaces and give them purpose. Just make spaces very purpose-driven, and I think it allows for like very efficient form of architecture.
And now it was kind of taking a different type of education space in a different country, so different context, and kind of trying to reimagine it with the education that we have and trying to push it to its different boundaries from, small cramped classrooms to now what's a different kind of educational space that you can create for the community to use. Like in our case, we were able to open it up, we made music rooms, we made, classrooms for the elderly, classrooms for the grade school kids, and kind of just pushing that idea of what an education space can be rather than, what we designed at undergrad as being just a library or something like that.
I was in a crappy mood earlier today, and I was coming in and just talking to these guys, I was automatically better. Like, you guys are a little bit like a drug, you just make me feel really good. Like, I'm gonna really miss you guys, like, coming in with all your hard work and your and just your inspiration and drive to achieve what you're doing. So I really appreciate. I'm gonna miss coming in and just able to talk to you guys and tell you guys what's important to me, but then you guys have an opportunity to tell me what's important to you. So we're kind of having this dialogue and hoping kind of changing the world a little bit in terms of what we could do in the summer, in the symposium and the finale, but also hopefully you got something out of this in your future career and what you want to do later. But so thank you guys, I really appreciate it.
It seemed to be that Hagwons are not like a desirable place to be at. It's kind of almost forced to be at because of the competitive Korean education system. We as a team tried to develop a more desirable place as a Hagwon so that kids can look forward to going to these places instead of forced to go to these places.
In terms of architecture and thinking as a designer, I think that rethinking the space of a Hagwon instead of a cramped school or a classroom to provide more space and more opportunity for students to be able to interact after class with each other, and then as well as providing light into classrooms was actually a big idea in our project, because in traditional Hagwons it's not so much natural daylighting, so that's something we wanted to make sure to.
I think it's all been really interesting too, because in all of our previous semesters, I don't think we've ever had to design something that's been so negatively perceived as it is today. Obviously all of our studio projects, we're always trying to change things, we're always trying to do new, cool, exciting ideas that make whatever experience that people are occupying it better. But none of them have been, again, so negative from the start that we're trying to change something. And so I think, like you said, giving it more of a social atmosphere, giving it more light, giving it more of just a human presence instead of just being a place to go study for hours and then go back home. I think it's been a really challenging but rewarding experience.
Redesigning of traditional Hagwons, the inclusion of vocational studies, a big part of our project, allowing for students to kind of figure out what they want to do in life, offering different trades, and kind of sparking interest for students, I think was a big seller in our project for us.
And the way we went about that, we talked a lot about removing any stigma that might be potentially there, and just making sure that people always are exposed to new ideas, new paths, and new options. And so not only fitting everything in the same building, because it's easy enough to do that if you just separate everything by different floors, for example, but actually making sure that everybody has the chance and opportunity to sort of mingle and experience everything else going on. Valuable about it, and that's one of my favorite things about our project.
We sort of have this huge void atrium in the middle of our building that has netting and biophilia growing on it. I think the narrative of someone coming into the building and kind of discovering this lush atmosphere, the building is really set in a real dense urban setting, I think was really interesting. It kind of does promote that sort of appreciation of the slow culture of life.
How radically we can kind of change a building and also just the Hagwon environment to make it super open, super hilly, super landscapey, and kind of bring that onto the interior of the building as well, combine it with the facade. So how can we make those two kind of join together and make these amazing spaces that really address everyone's needs.
The holes in our facade, all the way down to the beautiful wavy floor plates that we have.
The ability for it to be customized, and it's ever changing. The building could be one way one week, that completely change the following week through either the facade, the circulation space, even into the floor plans, and being able to move the walls. So just kind of giving the space back to the users and being able to make the space theirs, rather than it being kind of something that's strictly designed by the architect or the designer, that it gives back to the community and those that actually are going to be using the space, and how it helps benefit them the most.
With our Hagwon, we kind of had, each floor had a different program that would kind of base around our public staircase. We had a gallery space, terrace, we had an auditorium, so that each kind of floor that you go up to, you have a different program that you kind of want to see or go investigate. And that would also follow our public staircase that would be shown even from outside to the facade in.
Those spaces where you kind of have like you can view the same pedagogical situation from multiple levels. So we have spaces like theaters, as well as laboratories, where even if you're not on the same floor plate as that particular action, you can still view it, still be able to learn from it. Those kind of spaces that insinuate this idea that you can still be part of a pedagogical experience, even if you're not part of the actual class itself.
Facade it's not only just the inside-outside boundary, it just goes so far beyond that itself. You know, with our really weird programming and topographic floor layouts in our project, the facade also acts as a structural member as well. But in a way, it goes also beyond that too. Kind of speaks out to the kind of community and the neighborhood that's surrounding the site itself.
Our facade, we were given a lot of prompts to try to solve, lighting, as well as interchangeability and signage. And I think we tried to accommodate to all of those prompts with our signage and perforated facade panel, where we did allow lighting, but also kind of a contrast to the city, where the city urban context is very fast paced. Our signage is kind of contradicting to that, as you have to actually have interaction with it and stitch it. I think that's an element of contrast to the city, but also allows interaction with not only people within the building, but also outside of it.
The perforations actually have a language to them. Like I mentioned before, the perforations actually become smaller in areas where there are more traditional structured classrooms, and that's so that natural light is still able to come in, but to also limit the distractions. And in the more creative programs like taekwondo or ballet or dance, perforations actually become larger, and that's to allow for the most lighting to come in, and also the outside environment wouldn't be as distracting to a classroom that's dance or taekwondo.
Kind of focus on the adaptability and the ability for the community to kind of change it, be able to slide the signage, be able to add their own panels, be able to do their own custom artwork, and we kind of helped to then translate it into the space. So kind of the idea of the facade telling you what's going on the interior. So even into the circulation space, which is kind of the consistent cutout that you see. You can even down to it's down to the square panels that can be pin-up boards on the inside, so people walking up they can see flyers. And then even with that kind of customizability being brought into the actual floor plan, and being able to adjust, having movable walls that can create different spaces on each floor. So really kind of taking that different scale from the facade down to the circulation, down to even just the movable walls on the inside, and kind of having it translate throughout the entire project itself, and the idea of customizability, adaptability.
With my facade, we did vertical fins that would change color as you wrapped around the building. So we kind of picked the main colors of each advertisement signage that we found and picked 4 key colors. And then our most vertical fin that's perpendicular to the facade became actual signages that would kind of extrude out farther than most of the other fins that we had, to kind of still keep that advertisement for the building. But as it goes up, you can kind of see the public staircase that we made that wraps around the whole building.
For us, our facade is reflective of interior spaces and really trying to bring the inside out, and kind of abstracting this idea of gradient using a pattern that's reminiscent of traditional South Korean, or traditional Korean rather, woodworking used in paper walls and stuff.
use interior to affect the exterior in terms of you see the density in the panels and expanding and contracting based on the interior space. So here's an example. Like this is our egress port here. Use more particularly the density decreases as there's no light that needs to penetrate, and using this more towards advertisement, whereas other lecture hall spaces like here
I found them to be very uncomfortable, very dark, and unwelcoming spaces. Not places that I personally would like to be.
How Hagwon is creating its own little city within a city. So it's not only competition between students, but also businesses competing for attentions. You can really see that in the way the building is low. The facade basically advertising pleasure and ambitious inside the building, which make them very interesting to look at.
They're pretty unique to Korea. We don't really have them in America or much of a similar typology at the scale that they have in Korea. So in America, the closest thing we have is like Kumon, or potentially like I feel like private tutoring at libraries is more popular. So seeing the differences culturally was very interesting to me.
What was very interesting to us about the Hagwon as a design challenge was the social context behind it. After we learned about the traditional Hagwon design, which aims to maximize financial profit, it was crucial to us to propose a building that prioritizes students' comfort and well-being. So we were very intentional in making our building a social space that not only brings students together, but opens itself up to the public as a highly accessible space for people from all walks of life.
One thing I find interesting is that they're highly competitive private schools that are not required, but almost seem like it's required in the Korean community.
One thing I find interesting about Hagwons is the amount of people that attend Hagwons after school, and how it's seen as a way of competition for students to take extra classes and to get into good schools.
I think the most interesting thing for me has been comparing it to the US education system and seeing the amount of different stressors and different experiences that students in South Korea have compared to our students here.